in borscht? Never. Interesting. Chinese version, I guess. Whatever. Anyway, so how are things over in Georgia land?
Georgia land seems to be fine. Apparently, a few days ago, there was a national holiday. I wasn't aware of
Yeah.
it because I didn't go out. And
What
so
what
mind
national
you,
holiday?
it was so this is my 11-year-old student, local, who I teach online. And now, again, her vocabulary level is like a band 7. So it's actually pretty good in general for somebody that age. And
Yeah.
her explanation, though, was a little wanting. It seems like Georgia is named after a guy, Georgi. And Georgi, um, apparently, it sounded like a King Arthur's tale about him going to a lake and helping somebody. And so somebody in the lake made him the leader or something like that. It didn't make a lot
Wasn't
of
it St.
sense.
George? It wasn't St. George, was it?
I don't know. And she, in this point, it seems like she didn't know very much either, other than the fact she didn't have to go to school. So she was content with that.
Right, I gotcha. Declaration of Independence. Where did it come from? Good question. Where Georgia? How did you? Where do you get your name from? Don't know. Armenia. Tbilisi is the capital, which is where you're situated, right?
Correct.
On the outskirts. You're in the suburbs, though, right?
I guess we're in the city proper, but we're on the far northern edge,
Hmm.
called Goldani.
Okay. Right. First mention of the name spelled as Georgia is in Italian on the Mappa Mundi of Pietro Visconti, dated AD 1320. Early stage of his appearance in the Latin world, not always written in the same way. So it was also written with a J, Georgia. Stems from the Persian designation of the Georgians, Gurgan. Although I don't think I'm pronouncing that right. Okay. Not clear about the King Arthur type story.
Yeah.
Georgia's name is the state of Georgia. It doesn't even mention anything of it. Nope. Nope at all. Interesting. And yeah, have you been able to get out at all lately, or are you pretty locked? You're not locked down, but I mean,
Oh,
you
good
don't go out
heavens,
very
no.
much anyway?
Naturally, I don't go out. Among other things, I'm still inclined to save money until I know where money's coming from. And okay, yes, I have work right now, but I don't have work after a couple of weeks from now.
Oh,
So,
really? Oh.
well, I mean, the semester's over. So, I mean, I mentioned to you the Japanese school I work for, and that's I sign up for hours, and if it's available, I have students. So then I have to
Right.
go back to that at least for a while.
Yeah. Okay. And but wait a minute. So, how long would that last?
Well, with that, it's there whenever I want it. I'm on good terms
Is
with
that
the owner of the school.
that isn't that what's it West? Is it Westgate?
No, 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 no. This isn't Westgate. No, this isn't
Okay.
Westgate Corporation. As for Westgate, it looks like I might be at the beginnings of a relationship, and so I'd have to wait and see how things progress before applying to Westgate. And Westgate, it's normal. For university classes, it doesn't start until April. I have seen them posting ads as late as February looking for that April in
Right.
years prior. So there's no urgency to that.
But that's all online anyway, isn't it?
Well, Japan has opened up again, and recently they also changed it so that tourists no longer, Western tourists even, no longer need a tour guide. I was going through all of the everything I could find online. It seems like you don't need to be vaccinated to work there.
Oh,
And that doesn't
really?
surprise me. That doesn't actually surprise me because Japan, again, Japan never had mandates, never said people must wear masks. They never did any of that.
Hmm.
Um,
Interesting.
yeah, they just made it difficult for people to bring the disease in. But
Hmm.
if you were already in
In Japan.
Japan or if you went through the quarantine period,
Japanese government website. Although we encourage all citizens to receive the COVID-19 vaccination, it is not compulsory or mandatory.
Yeah.
Mandatory.
The
All right,
Japanese
going to
government's
Japan.
amazing.
My current host country would probably disagree. What about Thailand? Let's see what Thailand does. Thailand.
You know, my students were going to Henan University, which is located in Zhengzhou. What about Thailand?
Starting October 1st, 2022, travelers entering Thailand are no longer required to show proof of vaccination or COVID test result. Wow.
Most of the world's that way. America is one of the odd men out on this one, unless you're an American citizen.
Right. Interesting. Wow. The only reason I am actually looking at Thailand is because to do the Delta Module 2, I think they've been sending people to Thailand before. That was the although I haven't really researched this yet. I don't know. What do you know about this?
That is what I had understood. I think I had actually heard that from Judy when she was talking about Module 2 and other people, because you have to do the teaching, and it has to be observed teaching. And so for several years, I heard there was a place in Thailand, and I heard about other teachers doing it, I think in Florida, of all places, because, you know, Americans typically don't do the Delta. So I was baffled by that. But I heard Thailand quite a bit. And that there was a school or two set up that looked for people to come to them.
I guess, you know, hey, choice Japan or Thailand or Korea. I'd do Korea again. Korea would be fun to go back to. I think that would be very interesting. I'm not sure if Canada is a place to go for this. I haven't. Does Canada need proof of vaccination?
No,
haven't.
I don't. Oh no, I'm not sure. You know, I'm not sure.
June 14th, government of Canada announced that it's suspending for COVID-19 vaccination for federal employees. Okay, what about the rest of us employees? October 1st, wow, proof of vaccination is no longer required to enter Canada or board plane or train in Canada.
Hello, Steve.
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Yeah, well, can you see me moving? Because you're frozen.
Very little. Back. Yeah. Frozen
you're breaking
again.
up. Yep.
Yeah, I understand why it's breaking up again. Still broken.
Yes, it is.
You're frozen. I'm not using. Oh, that's why. That's why. All right.
Ah.
There we go. Now the government can track us again.
Wonderful. I'm sorry to hear
that. Canada suspending October 1st, 2022. Proof of vaccination is no longer required to enter Canada or board a plane or train in Canada. Wow, the world changed. I have not checked this. This is crazy. This is almost exciting, but not like I'm going anywhere. Not at all.
To stop all those unvaccinated Americans who wanted to enter Canada. I mean, not too many, I'd imagine, because those who are unvaccinated in America are not the kind of people that typically visit Canada. Well, I don't know. Maybe again, where you're from, in the plains, in the Central Plains, they might enjoy that area.
Good. Well, maybe, I guess. I don't know, but that's you know, and I was just mentioning on Facebook that, you know, if people could travel again, if they could backpack right now, anywhere in the world, where would they go? And a lot of people said, yeah, they would travel. And then they also said, well, there's Scotland was mentioned, Europe, of course, Asia was kind of mentioned as well. One person mentioned Asia, but it was actually all over the place. Northern Canada, and then also West Africa was also another place. But I mean, very small sample size, couple, sure. 5-6 people, but the interest is there. I mean, if they could go, they would, sort of thing. I mean, I can't help but think, you know, I don't know, because you've been in China, not in China, in Georgia for a while already. If you were given the choice and the chance to move, like especially with your work arrangements, Would you take your show on the road, so to speak?
Well, actually, the woman who I might be starting a relationship with, that's what she wants to do.
What?
Uh,
You have a woman involved?
I mentioned to you, I don't know, 10 minutes ago or 15 minutes ago that I'm seemingly at the beginning of a relationship. And so
I thought
I
that was in
told,
reference to the to the company that you were starting.
well, no, I was explaining, no. That was explaining why I'm not sure if I would have signed up for Westgate or not.
Oh, okay. Oh, Denny, you convinced another woman to go out with you?
Why, thank you, Steve. Thank you. Um, so
Well,
anyway,
congrats.
well, thanks. Uh, she works She works mainly face to face, but can also do her work online. She's Kenyan.
Okay.
She got her master's degree up in Sweden. She's lived in Ethiopia and South Africa also, but she's also traveled to India, Nepal, Russia. She was in Russia when the coronavirus problem began. Actually, she was in
Hmm.
Siberia, the Philippines. Some of her work, she's had two careers. In her first career, she was also in America and in Canada for a while. She was in Missouri. I don't know if that means anything to you, but she even knew Manhattan, Kansas. Kansas is next to Missouri.
Okay. No idea. It
Uh,
sounds like she's traveled all over. What does she do that she's been able to travel so much like this?
well, her earlier career, she had earned her master's degree in in something along the lines of city planning, public policy, and water management.
Right.
And she worked for an NGO. And so I guess going to different areas and consulting or explaining how to do things. Afterwards, she wound up getting something called Six Sigma training to be able
Yeah.
to analyze businesses and again consult about deficiencies and how to make it more efficient, more profitable, whether that means changing where you're getting your resources or materials, I should say, raw materials, how you're handling shipping or human resources or whatever. And that's what
Yeah.
she's been doing now. And well, like I said, she's based in Kenya. She had never really thought about establishing a company outside. Oh, she's been to Dubai and other places, but I said, well, why don't you consider establishing a business in Dubai? Very tax friendly. Also, you're, I mean, her English, I wonder why the African countries, for some people, they are not considered native speakers. I never really understood that. Um,
Probably political reasons, to tell you the truth, and whitewashing. To be very honest, just to be very sort of superficial about the analysis of that. First two thoughts comes to mind: political
yeah,
and whitewashing.
because Safi and you knew Mandu, right?
Yeah,
And
that's
so
Nigerian. She's Nigerian.
yeah,
Was not is
yeah, right,
Nigerian.
yeah, she was from Nigeria. Safi's from Zambia,
Yeah.
and okay, and so Aching is from Kenya. And
Hmm.
I said, even with her abilities, right? Unfortunately, when I listen to people, that IELTS examiner is still in the back of my head for analysis. She obviously is a band nine, right? English wasn't her first language, but it's the language of education. But it wasn't what she spoke at home.
Right.
Um, but she could work in Dubai servicing the foreign companies, doing that kind of work, and there are protocols for that, and paying no taxes on that. And so
Sounds like a
something
good
she's going to
job.
have to consider.
Yeah, but does she have to be allied with a company, or can she go on her own? So you're
She
saying setting up your own business sort of thing.
Right. Well, she's already working independently as it is.
Wait a minute. How did
I
you? You're in Georgia. How? Where is she?
So the internet is a marvelous thing.
You're okay. You're not starting a relationship with a woman online.
So as I was saying, she the one place she hasn't been yet, the one continent she hasn't been yet, or really wants to go visit is South America,
Okay.
which
Just
works for
sounds like
me.
you have an internet relationship going. And be careful about meeting her. Kenya, dude, this is all of a sudden starting to sound like a scam. Really, it sounds like a complete scam. part of a scam. Well, hopefully it works out and that you don't end up in a back of a trunk somewhere in South America after she, or who knows, her friend from MS-13 shows up or something. Or her cousin. Good question. All right.
She also visited Georgia before. And I can validate it because she can describe to me what she did in Tbilisi. So I know she's been here.
Because Google stops there. The research stops there. Well,
it's a little bit more sophisticated than that, Steve.
I hope so. I hope so, because if you're falling for an internet scam, boy, dude, I don't know what to say. Not sure. Eesh. Oh well. Hopefully it doesn't screw up, mess up. Good luck. Be safe, man. That's all I gotta say is be safe. How's that?
Look,
anyway, so are you following this World Cup at all? Does Georgia care about what's going on with the World Cup or not?
Similar to how China doesn't expect the Chinese men's team to be in anytime soon. It's the same thing here in Georgia.
I actually didn't know that China wasn't in the competition this year, apparently. They're not.
No, the men's team has never competed, as far as I know.
What about
in the preliminary?
Because it was Japan and South Korea that, right. I thought they were never in it. They were in the Asian Cup. I guess that's what it was.
The women's team has been in the World Cup. And in fact, I think they won one year, like 2003 or something like that. I don't remember.
Really?
Yeah, they had a good women's team not long after it started.
Standings. Who is first right now in World Cup? Wow, two games to one basically for a lot of them. I actually didn't know that Canada was in the World Cup, to tell you the truth.
Well, with North America, it's almost always Mexico, America, and Canada, if for no other reason, sheer size. Central America is grouped with us, and so is the Caribbean.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter because it's not drawn on who, like, where they are. It's a qualification process. Canada hardly ever qualifies.
No, Canada typically qualifies.
Yeah, we don't get in.
No, maybe you don't go beyond the first round.
No, this is the first time I think Canada does not get into the World Cup very often. No.
Okay, I'm surprised. I'm genuinely surprised.
That's why I'm so surprised to see that their name is listed. I'm like, my Polish colleague was like, "Yeah, your team did okay." I'm like, "What? What do you mean my team? Which team is that?" And he's like, "Canada." I'm like, "What? When did Canada get into the World Cup?" Well, apparently a while ago.
The United States is in the same pool as Iran and Wales.
And England, yes.
And England. And the United States drew the British 0-0. And I was reading on
0-0.
And I was reading on Twitter about this, and then I saw a long thread and I started reading it. And it's very interesting. It talked about the War of 1812 and how the Americans look at it, how the Canadians look at it, and how the British look at it. Because everybody claims they won.
But Canada actually won.
Well, no, we won. The Americans won.
Based on what?
Based on what? We claimed we got Florida out of it. We got Florida out of it, and the British evacuated all of the regions in the South. And we were able to continue our maritime shipping without the British. See, the cause of the War of 1812 was the British screwing around with our shipping industry. Well, from our point of view, from their point of view, we were sending weapons and arms to Napoleon. Yeah, it's the Napoleonic Wars. Well, so what? So anyway,
well, that's large. That's a large accusation.
But what they were also doing depends on your point of view, I guess. But they were also taking sailors on these ships and forcing American men into joining the British Navy. So there were two parts as to why we went to war with them. The
Right.
invasion into Canada, I don't get it. I guess they really like going over the St. Lawrence River and then coming back
Well,
over the St. Lawrence River.
at that time, what, United States was only 40 years young, sort of thing. So they might have thought, because a lot of the founding fathers would have still been kicking around, or their
Yes.
ideology would have been very, sort of prevalent. The idea that maybe the United States wasn't entirely fully formed just yet, and that they could take more from the British Empire at that point, because Canada was part of the British Empire at that point. So.
Sure.
Good question. I don't know. I don't know. Do you think these? This is an interesting question that I know comes up with students. Like teachers like to ask this question: can the World Cup or sporting competitions like this bring people together, or does it drive them further apart? What's your interpretation?
Well, I think we are seeing exactly why the World Cup will never be in the Muslim world again.
Why is that?
Oh, you haven't been paying. You have okay. So the Qatari government, when the World Cup was awarded to Qatar, their government promised that people would be able to buy alcohol at the stadiums and then also in designated places around the stadiums. Now, already in Qatar, technically you can buy alcohol in some hotel bars or other things like that, but it's very limited. Anyway, about 3 or 4 days before the competition begins, they say, "Oh, well, actually, no, you can't."
Right.
Actually, only very few people in special designated places can buy, excuse me, alcoholic beer.
Hmm.
Everybody else,
But
no.
they can buy non-alcoholic beer.
Yes,
You know what I just tried for the first time today?
non-alcoholic beer.
Non-alcoholic beer. And I
Did it
was reading.
impress?
Well, I was reading up about this because non-alcoholic beer does have a bit of a reputation, and I remember years ago when people used to talk about it, and it was just they're like, no, it's not the same, right? And so I bought it off of Jingdong, kind of wondering. I'm like, I bought it because I was like, I wouldn't, I'd like to try it, but then the thing with beer is there's sort of two aspects to it. Number one, it's sort of the flavor and that crispiness, like that sparkling water, but it's like flavored sparkling water, basically, right?
Mhm.
So it's that beer flavor that can draw some people, and that's what I kind of like as well. Number two is the alcohol content, which is has that, of course, that dizzy feeling or that intoxication feeling. And I've sort of, as I maybe I've grown up, or maybe as I've worked out a lot more, or my life is getting busier with podcasting and everything, I don't have time to be dizzy from alcohol. And so I was thinking, well, especially post workouts, if I finish a workout at 6 p.m. and I have a beer or two beers, and it's like, then I have dinner, I can't drink after dinner, but I don't want to be dehydrating my body after a workout.
Mhm.
So how do you deal with this? Well, my mom would say, don't drink. And okay, that's easier said than done, and it goes back
Right.
to that first sort of point of like the flavor of the beer and that sparkling water sort of sensation. And I've tried sparkling water before. I've even tried putting lemon in it, lime. Like I didn't want to put any sugars or like fake sugars in there.
Right.
So I was like, I keep on gravitating back to beer, but again, I don't want to be dizzy. And so I was like, all right, well, let's try non-alcoholic beer. And apparently, over the last couple of years, they've been investing more into it, probably because of this World Cup, that companies were sort of making preparations because a lot of the research a lot of results that I've seen are all dated 2021, 2020, so the last couple
Right.
of years. And it seems like companies, Guinness, Heineken made a 0-0 as well. Budweiser's had one forever, but Budweiser beer has never been good. So like drinking regular Budweiser
Oh,
is
wow.
is like
Now I see
drinking
why you
water.
don't have many American friends.
But same with Bud Light. Bud Light is not like it's like a starter beer sort of thing. Like you have a few of those while you're driving to the bar sort of thing. Don't drink and drive. But
Got it.
it's not it's not a real beer in my opinion. And so with that, I was like, okay, let's try it. And so I got this Bavaria uh, it says malt drink. I was like, what's a malt drink? I guess malt drink is, it's a beer, right? I guess. And it cracked it open. I'm like, I don't know how this is going to be. Tasted it. And I was like, actually, it tastes like beer. It has the fizziness. It has the heaviness of a beer. But even still, I could still feel like when I was drinking it, I still feel as if I am consuming some amount of alcohol. It's not as much as others. I also had a can of Asahi here, but even with that, again, I'm thinking about how much I drink on a like a day-to-day basis after these workouts and stuff, and usually it's one or two beers until dinner, and then I don't drink. And so I was like, well, that would be perfect if I could have two beer flavored waters that would then tide me over until dinner. And then I'd have my dinner and I'd stop drinking. I'd stop consuming calories because I try to do this, I guess you call it intermittent fasting. Other people just call it stop eating, right? Is it intermittent fasting or is it you're just not eating all the time? Two ways to look at it. So yeah, the non-alcoholic beer that I got, Bavaria 0.0, not bad. I have a case of Qingdao, no alcohol beer coming up, arriving sometime. But to be fair, Qingdao beer is also not a very strong beer to begin with. It's also not like my go-to. I drink it because I'm in China, but I'm not sure of the difference, which actually is kind of a good thing because I was going to get Asahi non-alcoholic, but it was horribly expensive, whereas Qingdao non-alcohol was actually kind of cheap. And I can't imagine there's going to be a big difference in terms of flavor profile.
Right. I'm trying to remember because I didn't drink alcohol, but I know living in Harbin, there's Harbin beer, and then is there another one called Ice or Snow?
Snow beer, yeah, that one's apparently it's very popular. People say, oh yeah, snow beer is great. I'm like, that all tastes the same. Qingdao, Yanjing. Actually, I would say Yanjing actually doesn't taste the same as Qingdao. Like I can tell a difference. But they're all lagers, so they're all very light beers anyway. Recently, I've been drinking Asahi because it's easy to get, and then Cass because Cass it's a Korean beer. I don't know. I think it just tastes better a little bit overall. But if I could get if I could get the non-alcoholic version of Asahi for cheap, that'd be great. But if not, then I'll go with these other types of these beers. I don't want flavored beers. I don't want like raspberry or peach or anything. No. I still want beer flavored beer. So apparently it's not bad. It does require more thinking on my behalf because now I have to place the orders rather than just going down to the shop. And I asked the on compound shop, do you guys have any Lingdu Pijo, like no, 0 degree beer? And they're like, no.
Why would you want that?
She did say something. I wasn't sure if she was going to order it for me, but I'm like, nah, you don't have to order it for me. I could just get it myself. It's not a big deal. So, yeah, but so success so far. I had 2 of those today, and then I had 1 of the Asahis that I had left over. So that's the end of the Asahi. So tomorrow, if I have a beer, it will be non-alcoholic, and we'll see if it's successful in terms of tiding me over. So filling that afternoon void, I guess you can call it. Like, do you have that afternoon void or that afternoon gap? I call this. So what happens? My theory, and I don't think I'm the only one with this, but you work a lot in the morning, you have your lunch, but if you're like one of these hyper productive people, you might eat lunch and work at the same time, or watch a video like an instructional video or something. So you might try to learn or keep on learning something, right? And then around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, it becomes like, okay, now I have to step away from the computer. You actually want to detach yourself from your work. So at that point, you have like it's too early for dinner. You've already eaten, but you've been sitting all day, working mostly. Your eyes are kind of going blurry. Your brain and mind is going a little fuzzy as well. And you're like, okay, well, I'll go for a walk. And like then, but you can't just come back and start work again because there's sort of that transition from the first part of the day into your evening, at which point you have to start thinking about what you're going to make for dinner. So I've called that the afternoon gap, or there's a lull, the afternoon lull, and that has been the source of the beginning of a lot of my drinking throughout, as far as I can remember. But what about you? Have you ever experienced this, like that afternoon lull? Not the need to drink, but the desire to
No,
drink, but that afternoon lull.
no, no. Uh, well, for me, the computer also is, the computer certainly is where I do my work, but also it's where I get information, it's where I do reading. Also, do you know the game Magic the Gathering? We were
Yes.
middle school and high school students.
Yes.
Right. And it was actually all the way back in 1996, 97. There was a computer DOS-based game, but it also runs on Windows 10.
Hmm.
And I like to play that.
Online.
No, 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 not online. No, no, no. It's from 1997.
Oh, okay.
This is, yeah, this is a really old game. The online game, among other things, real magic, you buy cards
Yeah.
and you can only play the cards that you have. And it's the same thing if you do the digital online thing,
Right.
right? Because or everybody would just make decks with the best cards in it.
Yeah.
And so you get to buy like an NFT. You get to buy this electronic copy of a card, but it's not
Oh,
real.
yeah. Right.
And and also the rules have changed so much. For example, Dungeons and Dragons. They, I play second edition or AD&D.
Okay.
That went on from like late 80s, early 90s until about 99, 2000, and then there was third edition, 3.5, 4, now they're on fifth edition. The rules have become a lot easier, a lot simpler. Is there more clarity? To some extent, yes, certainly. But also they've made it so that they're different races, just like in Lord of the Rings. And you can be a combination of races. You could be half elf, so you're half human, half elf, or this or that. But they have made it so broad that you can say, oh, I'm an eighth this, I'm a quarter that, and so I get these special abilities and those special abilities, but none of the downside to playing that race.
Right.
So
Well,
from
so
my
what would
point
the
of view, yes.
downsides be then? Like, if someone is like one of these uber characters or super characters, what would the downside be?
Well, the point is so that you have to deal with some restriction, some counterbalance to the fact that you can have this but not that. For example, uh, dwarves dwarves have greater strength and maybe constitution, but they have problems with their dexterity.
Okay.
Elves have better dexterity, but take a blow to constitution.
Uh,
Humans
sorry. What? They ate something to the
const
Constitution?
so their constitution, their actual
Oh,
body functions are a
okay.
little bit hurt.
Right.
And then there are humans who have no special changes, but they have the ability to learn the greatest set of or develop the greatest set of abilities.
Right.
And so there's no counterbalance to that. Well,
What
anyway,
draws you to this game? Okay. Yeah. Oh, yes.
Magic Ed was the same thing. In
Right.
Magic, the original rules up to when I stopped buying cards actually 96,
Right.
Ice Age. And now Magic is 20, gosh, 20, 25 years old, I guess. Wait a minute. No, it's 92. Oh, wow. It's 30 years old. 30 years
That's an
old.
old man game.
Almost.
That's a parent. That's your daddy's game, basically. If you're a kid, I mean, you're point. Dad, my dad plays that, right? kind of like Civilization, I would say. Civilization was my big game that I played in high school, junior high and high school. But I have resisted buying the latest editions only because, well, there's two reasons. One, I know it's highly addictive. Number two, it requires more system resources, and it just became very difficult to keep up with it because that game requires so much computer power. And I was reading reviews of it as well, and they're like, yeah, it requires so much computer power that it almost makes it unenjoyable at times because you're waiting for your computer, or you have to play it on such a low level. So unless you have a dedicated gaming system, it's not running the way the old game could be run. I guess it was still dedicated back then, wasn't it?
Well,
Computers didn't multitask as well as they do today.
are you familiar with GOG?
Oh, this
Grand Old
sounds
Games.
familiar, but no, don't know it.
All right, it's a website where you can buy older games on the cheap.
Right.
And I have Civilization 3 on this laptop that I'm talking to you with. My copy of Civilization 4. Civilization 4 came out in 2005 or 6. It's actually in Qinhuangdao where my
Right.
son lives.
I
My
think
younger brother,
Civ 4 was probably the last one I played. I played the Warlords expansion pack.
and you can download things like that. Did you play StarCraft? The original
No,
StarCraft is free.
never did.
Warcraft 2,
Never.
Warcraft 3, no.
No. It was Civilization. I played SimCity Build It on my cell phone for a few years, maybe a year or so. I don't play very many video games at all. I was tempted when I was back in Canada, and I almost think I probably should have done this, was to buy the NES Classic and the SNES Classic. They were like $100 a piece, right?
Ness,
And yeah,
Ness, that is
the
why that is why you should stick to your side of the St. Lawrence River. Ness, okay, in normal
what?
English, we say NES or SNES.
No, not at all.
Yes.
NES and SNES. That's how I've always said it. That's how everybody I know says it.
Yeah. North of the border.
Even the Americans I know, it's not an NES, it's NES. Wow. Okay.
Nonsense.
I did all right. So anyway, Nintendo Entertainment System and the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. The only other I was looking for used versions on Taobao and Jingdong, but they don't sell game consoles here. As far the Nintendo Switch is allowed, but like PS5 and stuff like that, I guess they're not allowed here or something. I'm not sure. I don't know.
That sounds right from what my son and my ex-wife tell me. The workaround for that is you could have ordered from Japan or Korea, maybe China. I'll ask my younger brother. You download an emulator onto your laptop, but then you can get a controller that's for that gaming
Well,
system
yeah,
with
yeah,
USB.
but no, I wanted the actual box because it's I don't know how much stuff you do on your computer, but it's getting to the point that I'm trying to do everything on this one system. Like I'm looking at my setup right now and going, this might be a little bit much. And maybe it's time to either upgrade or downgrade, one of the two. But it's like you run an emulator, you're sucking up system resources, regardless of like maybe you focus on a game like that. I would think that I would have it something like on the side. I would start playing it for 15 minutes, press pause, then go back to doing something else,
Yeah, you
right?
realize these are 8-bit and 16-bit games. They didn't
But
take up all that much memory.
yeah, it's
And you don't need
no.
processing. You don't need a lot of processing speed to play
Well,
these games
do you use an emulator?
because I don't have a controller to play it. My brother does a lot, no problem.
Hmm. But you don't use one.
Again, because I don't have a controller for it.
But if you had a controller, there goes podcasting.
I would be
Sorry,
playing
I'm
Mario
busy.
Kart. A lot
Mario
of
Kart, that
people
was another.
believe Mario Kart 64 was the best one. No, I disagree.
Which one
The,
was that
this,
then? Yeah.
the Super Nintendo, the original version.
Yeah, I remember that one. That was a classic. That was a very good game.
But I guess my reaction dealing with SNES compared to N64, I didn't have N64. I didn't play it very much. And my
Wait a minute.
issue,
N64, not N64? If it's an NES, then why don't you say N64?
no, we say it more quickly, SNES.
Yes. Even still, but you just said N64. Isn't it an N64?
No, because 64 refers to the number of bits.
Right. Okay.
It does.
So okay, so your story is.
So anyway, I didn't have one, and I wasn't overly impressed by the N64, save Super Smash Brothers.
Okay.
And what was it? Golden Eye. Right.
That was
Golden,
N64. I thought that
yeah,
was also Super Nintendo.
no, the graphics sort of was reminiscent of Star Fox, to be certain,
Hmm.
but it was definitely higher quality.
Hmm. I remember people playing GoldenEye. That was the one that you could have 4 players on it, right?
Yes, and have that split screen. It was the first one of that generation of consoles to really go into that kind of thing.
Whatever happened to the N64? When did it sort of stop being relevant?
The thing is, I was in, I guess that was 98, more or less. And the N64 was still in college, being played by college students when I went to China in '04. And then after that, I mean, by then I think PlayStation 2 was going to be coming out, maybe
Hmm.
the first Xbox. I had no idea.
So
And
you
then,
didn't play PS2, 3, 4, whatever it is.
no, 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 no. Traveling around the world and not really interested.
Yeah, I noticed that travel killed a lot of my childhood sort of distractions, games and sports and stuff like that. When you have to figure out how to communicate your way across a border, and then you have to, you know, gear up to go to the local government office and wonder if they're going to arrest you or profile you or whatever, or
Right.
just simply finding your hostel, which was always sort of an issue. I don't know about how easy it was for you to find hostels, but I always got lost. I always just went to the direction of where the hostels would be and then looked there. I never tried to find one hostel.
When did you start traveling abroad?
2009?
My first travel abroad was '04, and the internet, I couldn't rely on cell phones or anything like that, certainly not for information. I was prepared. I had maps, or I understood and wrote notes about where I had to go left or right, about how much distance it was. You know, what people did in the
Yeah, but
70s or 80s or
even still
90s.
with directions and maps, the hostels had such small signs that it's like unless you knew exactly where to look, you would just walk right by it because that they were not in the business of
Uh,
advertising themselves. It
Very
was more
well.
like you had
Yeah.
to know exactly where to look. That was the issue. It wasn't that I couldn't navigate. It was that I couldn't find the sign that said that the hostel was on the
You're
third
right. Yeah,
floor.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like up here to point with an arrow, turn around the corner down this dark alley on the third floor. You're going, where really to
Right.
look? Then, as I became a little bit more acclimatized to how hostels and they're working out, and Southeast Asia made it a lot easier and cheaper. It became a lot easier to sort of find different places and to go in there, scope them out. But to be fair, a lot of them, I think back then, they still had like game consoles. I'm not sure if they do now, but I think you can rent them. I'm not sure. Yeah, but travel killed my gaming. I wasn't big into it anyway. Towards the end of it, again, Civ 4 was sort of the last one. I remember playing that one in South Korea, like taking it with me. But
Right.
since then, SimCity build it on the cell phone, and that's it.
Yeah, the again, it's just that era. There were other games from the '90s and early 2000s that I play or would like to play sometimes, but then that's it.
How, so you don't game very much now, other than playing. Do you play Magic now?
Sure, I play. Well, like I said,
Oh,
I played on my computer. I actually have several thousand cards, and they're geez, too much. They are with me. They are here in Georgia. All of my things, all of
physical
my
cards
personal,
you took with them to Georgia?
all of my, I had all of my personal belongings either here with me or whatever I had to leave in China when the coronavirus problem started.
Right,
I didn't want to have I didn't want my family having to deal with it.
right.
It's not
How
very
much?
practical.
How much? No.
They're heavy, right? They're heavy.
And well, at least I mean, you could barter with them if you had to get across a border crossing, right?
I'm better off trying to barter the 100 grams of gold than the magic cards.
Right. Well, if you're carrying 100 grams of gold, I'd be careful, sir. I'd be careful. Um, are you able, because a few weeks ago we talked about you leaving Georgia for visa runs. Have you been able to travel that region at all lately, or no? You're still staying
Uh,
put.
I'm staying put at the end of next week, everything should be completely finished. Unless, of course, classes get canceled or rescheduled. As you know, it's happened twice in the last 2 weeks. Thursday
Yeah.
and Friday classes were canceled. And so we have to change this, we have to change that. And we're getting into crunch time. The reports, but also for students' presentations are supposed to be this week. And us having to shift classes, Thursdays and Fridays classes into this week. Some groups of students had no change. Some
Right.
groups of students should have had 4 classes last week and only had one.
Hmm.
So,
So, so I guess you are being heavily affected by what's going on here in China.
well, especially in Zhengzhou.
Hmm. Because they got was the entire city locked down? No,
Well,
compounds were locked down.
there's also been some really unhappy people for the last couple of weeks who
Right.
have done very unnice things to local authorities. And
This has been even here. I just learned today actually that apparently the compounds, if they close off the tower or the building, they have to provide documents that have been stamped by the local government. If they don't, it's illegal and they cannot seal off the compound. So as a resident, you can demand to see those documents, and if they don't produce them, you're not breaking the law by leaving. You might have some very angry Baoans screaming at you and making a big deal about it, but they can't stop you
and and
legally.
I and and several weeks ago, they had been required, I think I told you, to stay not only in their dorm building, but in their dorm room.
Yeah.
Forget leaving the campus. But then they were told, okay, this was Wednesday, this past week, leave tomorrow. And probably next semester's classes will also be conducted, all of them will be conducted online, none of them face to face here in Zhengzhou.
Yeah. Hmm. I could see that happening. I think, well, I don't know, going forward, some people, one of these oil stock Canadian energy guys that I follow seems to be optimistic that China is going to reopen within the next year or something. And I'm like, living here, I kind of go, they would have to do an about face on what's going on. Now, to be fair, um, are there any major US American holidays going to happen between now and, I don't know, July 4th next year? Major US holidays.
US holidays, you mean other than Christmas?
Okay,
I mean,
so
Christmas,
there would be Christmas. Okay, so that's not just American, but yeah, that would
right.
be huge in the United States. After that, what happens? New
Valentine's
Year's?
Day.
What?
Well, okay, New
Valentine's Day?
Year's, Valentine's.
Maybe New Year's, maybe Valentine's Day. But China kind of likes to celebrate.
Spring Festival.
Valentine's Day, doesn't it? After Valentine's Day, what happens in March?
In March, yeah, well, in China, isn't it Women's Day?
U.S.
March, St. Patrick's Day.
That's not U.S. I mean, and then April. So after Valentine's Day, when would the next sort of big holiday that's actually like a day off from work? Memorial Day?
Memorial Day. Memorial Day, the
Okay.
end of May.
So there just has been a theory that it seems very convenient that these outbreaks have happened around major U.S. holidays for the last 6 months or so. Independence Day, this Thanksgiving, and what else happened? Was it Labor Day in September as well?
September. Mm-hmm.
Right. So these things have, I don't know how true it is, but I look back and kind of go, yeah, that's very odd. It's sort of been aligned, not perfectly, but leading up and then resolved shortly after. Now, there could be any number of reasons for this: increased travel, increased vacations, increased communication and business contact between both countries. So that, I mean, that could be it. But you hear that and you kind of go, wow, really? Wow, that is very weird. So that's why, after Thanksgiving, we might see some things open up. Christmas, don't know, New Year's, but that's like a 2-for-1 deal, right? I mean, because if they close off a city or close off a compound for 5 days, you get Christmas, you get New Year's, and you're done.
What I wonder is this going to continue into Spring Festival?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, I can't even remember what Spring Festival's like anymore, to tell you the truth. I don't think they had the temple fairs this year either, the Miao Hui. But next year it'd be nice to go back, to tell you the truth. Maybe with sort of a lot of control measures in place, like only a certain number of people are allowed in the park. I think that would be very realistic to see. Social distancing, masks. I'm not sure about vaccinations. Obviously, a negative NAT test, that would probably be one of the big criteria to enter in one of these temple fairs. Yeah, good question. But this is going on what, 2020, 21, 22. This would be year number 4 of COVID spring festivals.
Yeah.
What year is it? It's the year of the what? The year of the, I know this. It's not the mouse. It's the year of the not the elephant. There's no elephant. Year of the rabbit. Year of the rabbit. That's what it is. So, yes. And rabbit, 4th in the 12-year cycle. Animals that appear in the Chinese zodiac. Zodiac.
Yes.
Which one?
Zodiac.
Zodiac. No, not zodiac.
I think we ought to make the African-speaking countries clearly native speakers of English. The Canadians, maybe we're going to just revoke your license.
That's unfair. Related to the Chinese calendar, the year of the rabbit is associated with the earthly branch symbol Yin. Don't know. In the Vietnamese zodiac. How did you say it? Zodiac. And the Gurung zodiac. The cat takes the place of the rabbit. Okay. Yin, energy is Yin, season spring, element wood, upcoming year January 22nd, 2023 to February 9th, 2024. Han Yu Ping Yin, Tu, Hokkien POJ, Tho, To, Bujidao, don't know. There you go. Interesting. Well, Georgia doesn't follow the Chinese zodiac, does it? The year of the rabbit, they don't have that. It's an Orthodox country or Muslim country?
Yes, it's one of the oldest Christian countries in the world.
Right. Yes, I think that's what this article says here. Something along the lines like there is a lot of orthodoxy as well.
Yes.
Anyway, interesting.
You will see that, right? You'll see a lot of their priests on the road, in the supermarket,
I've lost your audio. Can't hear you.
Hello?
There we go. Yep.
Okay.
Sorry,
Yeah.
what were you saying? Something about seeing the priests in the
Where in
supermarket
their
and at home.
garb,
Yeah.
in their garb at supermarkets or other places.
So kind of like the Buddhist monks that walk around here in the summer, at least.
Yeah.
Well, even in the winter, they wear their winter jackets underneath usually, maybe over top. I can't remember. You don't see them in Beijing too much. That's for sure. And you don't see Christian or like Catholic priests in their garb. The monks you do, but yeah, that's about it. Yeah, interesting. Then November, Georgia, I guess they would be celebrating Christmas, wouldn't they? But they'd be celebrating it in January, wouldn't they? According to
Correct.
the Orthodox calendar.
Correct.
The is that the Julian or the Gregorian calendar? It's the Julian calendar, isn't it?
I guess they're using the Julian calendar.
Yeah, it must be because that follows the lunar cycle.
I don't know.
It would be similar to the Chinese calendar, like the lunar cycle, which is what the Chinese zodiac is based off of, I believe, right? Yeah. Anyway, so that's going to be Orthodox Christmas. Orthodox Christmas. When would that be? Want to know Christmas? Probably January 7th. December 25th. That is not it. Nope. Orthodox Christmas, January 7th is usually when it happens. January 7th, 2023 is when the Orthodox Christmas happens. Interesting.
I might
All
be
right.
here for it. I'll tell you how it is then.
Would you do you partake in any of the religious sort of festivities that you've seen as you've traveled? Like even as a spectator?
I guess with my Chinese family or with my Vietnamese family, respectively, for the Chinese or Vietnamese New Year's.
Mm-hmm.
With the Vietnamese family, there was certainly more to it. I mean, they would actually go to the burial places of their grandparents and sweep the tombs and do other things associated with it.
Mm.
Whereas with Chinese New Year, it seems to be fairly secular, hardly any religious aspects, maybe spiritual, the burning of the money, the fake money, but not really much.
There's a bit of because there is that family element, but like in terms of going to like tomb sweeping, that they have a dedicated day for that later on, right?
Right.
So they sort of separate that, but that's tomb sweeping festival is like when the ground has thawed, it's not so threatening to go walk through muddy hillside sort of thing to the burial grounds and stuff like that. I mean, it's just to the cemeteries. It's not as not as weather inclement, not as bad.
Right.
Weather's
And in
not as bad.
Vietnam, it's very warm, so they wouldn't have an issue visiting the graves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I like to go see them, and I like to take videos too if I can, as long as I'm able to do it in sort of a respectful way. I think a lot of people, a lot of the religious ceremonies that I've seen have all been outdoors or on public display. So
Mhm.
it's they're meant to be viewed by the people. It's not a closed off affair. It's not like going to a church and then when they're doing the blessing, like running up there and going, "Oh, what are you doing? Take a picture."
Right.
No,
Yes.
nothing like that. But yeah, interesting. It's neat to see. I can't say I've been convinced to join any other religion, to tell you the truth. I know that some of other expats feel the need to, but me, nah.
My impression is most of especially people who are teaching English as a foreign language, if they are not, if they're not proselytizers, okay, there's certainly that subset
Yeah.
who are going around spreading typically the faith of Christianity. Then they're usually soft atheists.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
that's an actual term. That's an actual term.
I understand. What do you mean by this?
Well,
Proselytizing and soft atheism.
Well, the proselytizers are out spreading the good word, but then most of the rest are soft atheists. They don't believe in God,
Hmm.
or but they haven't really thought about it and they just don't care.
Yeah. And
That has
typically,
been,
I've seen that those people typically didn't grow up in a religious family to begin with. Like religion had not been a
oh,
part of their growing up, and probably not part of their parents growing up as well. So it's sort of one of those generational things that
yeah.
if they were religious beforehand, it's sort of it dropped by the wayside. The proselytizing, that would be very much a U.S. American traveler thing to do. You don't see Canadians doing that very much.
Well, to be clear though, typically or commonly, I should be clear, I should be better in my choice of words. Southern Baptists and Mormons.
Yeah,
If they
yeah.
are proselytizing, typically they're one of these two groups from one of these two groups, or
Hmm.
Jehovah's Witnesses. But
Have you met a lot of these subsects, like in your travels?
in my travels, not that I was aware of. Growing up in Kansas, there were Mormons, and I had
Well,
Mormon
yeah, but I mean
friends.
that's right.
That's
But
Kansas.
overseas, I mean, the proselytizing ESL teachers that you'd mentioned.
Um,
Yeah, like I can't think of
yeah,
anyone who would sort of be spreading the good word, as you said, like the word of the Bible or
but
um, baby Jesus.
But the thing is that typically I was teaching in academia, universities,
Yeah,
and it was more than just conversational English. And in academia, Western academia are very hostile to the idea of God in general.
right. And speaking about it in class as well, sort of uh, sex, religion, and politics. Those are three things that if you want to lose a friend, talk about them, and if you want to get your boss on your tail, talk about those in class.
Yes, certainly. It is rare that such topics are appropriate in the classroom. They may be, there may be classes where it's appropriate, but typically undergraduate level classes, teaching about writing or just conversational English,
Yeah,
typically doesn't involve that.
yeah. No,
Definitely.
I would shy away from those conversations as well because it's hard to explain, and everybody has their own opinion, and it can lead to bad feelings or mixed feelings that aren't conducive to learning. And you do want your classroom to be a safe space where people can practice their language abilities without fear of sort of being criticized for their opinions and not
Right.
just their language abilities.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Good point.
All right. Well, it's getting late here, and I think there's another game on with the World Cup, and I think I should do at least some token watching of the World Cup. I have it on, but I have it on for sort of as a passive method to learn Chinese, extensive listening, as they would call it, I guess.
I see.
But if you ask me to translate what's going on, no, I wouldn't. It'd be tough. Improving, but it would be tough.
Just point to the screen. See, the thing about soccer
That
is that it's
doesn't
fairly
help my
self-explanatory.
Chinese language abilities.
Well, can see at least, but again, with soccer, the vocabulary ought to be fairly simple. Imagine trying to describe American football. It's so many different things going on. Even baseball is more sophisticated than soccer.
Yeah,
Mind you, I'm not putting down soccer. I played soccer. I like soccer. It's a good thing.
right. Well, I don't know. What are you doing this afternoon in Georgia? You're not going to go play soccer. You're not going to watch the World Cup either, are you? It's in your time zone, isn't it? Or a couple hours. It's
It is in my time zone, but for example, the game between the United States and England started at 11 o'clock at night here. And
uh,
Qatar is, I think, in the same time zone. This
yeah.
was Friday night. Yes, Friday night. The game was on at 11 at night so that Americans and Britons could both enjoy the game.
Could watch the game. Yeah, that's kind of funny actually. Well, they aren't they sponsoring the? A lot of sponsors come from the United States and from well, Europe is a huge market, right?
But the other reason is it dawned on me. Remember how the World Cup's usually in the summer?
Yeah,
Well, good God, Qatar in the summer, the
it's very
highs
hot apparently.
are 50,
Yeah.
55 degrees Celsius. So first they changed it all the way to November. But another reason they may be playing it at night is
It's cooler.
because it's still, yeah,
Oh,
even
wow.
5 or 6 degrees Fahrenheit, just 2 or 3 degrees Celsius. That means fewer air conditioners
Yeah,
running, less electricity being used.
that's that's a good point. Do you agree with that movement? We'll cover this topic, then I'll let you go. Do you agree with that idea of moving the World Cup games from its traditional August sort of, or making that modification on a global scale? Do you think it really matters?
I think that for the intent of the World Cup being a competition where, in theory, any team in theory could get through the qualifiers and actually compete. And the point is to have teams from other places in the world maybe meet, talk to each other, play with one another and their fans too. All right, it makes sense. I understand that, especially the soccer isn't so loved in America, so it really didn't mess. It didn't. But I know that because of when the qualifiers were, it messed around with the Bundesliga in Germany, the Premier League, the Spanish, and the Italians. I understand that. This is the first time I think it has happened,
Yeah,
and
I think
if
that
they
was the
are
big deal. Yeah.
And if they're trying to make it global, then yeah, that's going to come with it. I mean, nobody cries when the NHL has to change their season because of the Winter Olympics.
The NHL cries about it.
Yeah, but the rest of the world ignores.
Right. Yeah, the rest of the world's like, who's the NHL? But the NHL is like, ah, yeah, the National Hockey League. So that's the big hockey league
Yeah, but the
in
Europeans
Canada
are
and the United
happy.
States.
You know,
Yeah.
I have you watched European games? Not
Little.
really.
No, I
So,
can't
but
say I know the schedule.
even in the Olympics, the the ice rink is wider.
Hmm.
Uh, the play is not as aggressive. It's a lot friendlier. It's
Yeah.
the Americans and Canadians who ruined apparently the beautiful art that is supposed to be ice hockey.
I don't know if they ruined it. I think they just took a little bit of more of a competitive edge to it. That's all.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, that was a pleasure talking to you, Denny, as always. And we will
Likewise.
certainly talk again. Have a great Sunday afternoon. Okay. Bye bye.
Thanks, you to see. Bye.